Africa-EU cooperation has involved a lot of different actors, and it's been actually going on for quite some time already. So dating back to the first few policies, as we saw at the very start, African cooperation was always a big part of the EU's plan. The European Commission is really the coordinator and the financier behind it, although the European Space Agency does the same. ERMITSAT has their own individual projects. Individual member states have their own bilateral projects. So Germany and France have their own. And then EASC, so the European Association of Remote Sensing Communities, also recently was involved with AARC as well, ARSC. The flagship component, or the flagship vehicle that we know is GMES in Africa. So the Global Monitoring for Environmental Security in Africa. So this program essentially is about the use of Earth observation data for sustainable development in Africa. So it's called GMES in Africa because GMES was the old name for Copernicus. So what you can think about is essentially the use of Copernicus within Africa for three main thematic areas. So long-term management of natural resources, management of marine and coastal areas, as well as water resources management. So there are 13 main consortia who are all working on this right now. So based in Egypt, Gabon, Ghana, Kenya, Mauritius, Namibia, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, Tunisia, and the DRC. So the GMES in Africa program covers the entire continent, unlike its predecessors. So before GMES in Africa, there were a few other Earth observation programs for Africa, but they were mostly focused on North Africa. And now the GMES in Africa tries to cover the entire continent. 5 key areas that they're trying to do: so improve access to Earth observation data, focus on 2 main services, so water and natural resources, as well as marine and coastal environments, and also work on capacity building and awareness raising for Earth observation. I actually had the pleasure of working with some of the GMES in Africa consortia on a communications workshop. And so there we talked to different players. So Marco South, that's in South Africa. That's a consortium, the organization out in South Africa that's working on marine and coastal. So they have come up with different applications using Copernicus data, essentially in partnership with Mercator or ECMWF or EMITSAT, using different Copernicus satellites for things like marine weather forecast, ship traffic monitoring, coastal ecosystem mapping, monitoring, assessment, and different areas, right? Similarly, in Ghana, you have the University of Ghana, which is the implementing body in Ghana, working with the Ghana Meteorological Agency to develop a way to essentially inform fishermen of weather conditions on water, essentially, on ocean weather conditions. So they can, before they go out, they can just on their phone, using a USSD code, so they don't even need internet, they can find out what is the current condition on the water. Should I be going out? What should I be watching out for? Is there a storm coming? So these are very concrete applications of using satellite data that are now being implemented regionally within Africa by the different institutions. Aside from Copernicus, you also have navigation cooperation within Africa. So we talked a bit about EGNOS. So EGNOS is a very interesting system in the sense that it can be extended to Africa simply by building more ground stations within Africa. So you just develop specific ground stations in Africa, and you can now extend the entire EGNOS infrastructure and services to Africa as well, which essentially allows Africans to benefit from the use of satellite-based augmentation systems, which allow them to improve things like air transport and other upstream and downstream applications. Of course, from an EU perspective, this is very nice because they can now sell ground stations, receiver equipment, services, infrastructure to Africans now. So they have a way to earn more money as well as highlight their use of their navigation systems. This has had a long history. So even since 2004, the EU has been trying their best to extend EGNOS services into Africa. We have been mostly focusing on North Africa, French Africa, and South Africa as the main areas of cooperation. And actually the ASECNA, so the French-speaking Africa, so in the West, and already has plans to develop their own satellite-based augmentation system based on EGNOS as well. So you can see Earth observation and navigation. There's been quite a lot of activity between Europe and Africa already. However, on satellite communication or other applications, it really hasn't been the case. In fact, China has had way more of an impact than than Europe in terms of that cooperation. Overall, Europe has spent quite a lot of money funded a lot of different programs, both on Earth observation and satellite navigation through different instruments. But yeah, the GMES in Africa program is probably the most recognizable and the flagship program for Africa currently.